In the bustling heart of Lagos, a young man named Tobi Alade fights every day to keep his mother alive. Once a proud schoolteacher, Mama Tinu is now bedridden, her health failing after years of hard labor and neglect. When illness strikes, Tobi turns to a healthcare system that sees human lives as numbers on a bill. He has love, he has faith, but not enough money. Tobi Alade had learned early that Lagos doesn't care about your dreams. It only respects your hustle. Every morning, before the sun dragged itself above the chaos of age, he was already up, moving between the sound of danfo horns and the shrill call of the bread sellers. The city breathed like a tired beast, and Tobi was just another pulse in its veins. He wasn't supposed to end up here, living in a cramped one-room apartment with a flickering bulb and a mother whose coughs had begun to sound like thunder. But life has a way of rearranging dreams, like a careless child scattering puzzle pieces across the floor. Mama Tinu used to be a teacher, strict but kind. In Oyo Town, everyone knew her as the woman who made children love books. Even the most restless boys in class would calm down when she raised her eyebrow. But teaching doesn't pay in Nigeria, not enough to live, certainly not enough to grow old in peace. When her health began to fail, it started small. Fatigue. Shortness of breath. Swollen legs. It's just age, she said, brushing it off with that same stubborn pride that had kept her alive through widowhood and poverty. But Tobi knew. He knew it was something deeper. Something the body was too tired to fight. "Let's go to a hospital, Mama," he'd said one morning, watching her struggle to rise from the bed. "Hospital? My son, you know how much they charge. You think I want to be lying there while people are counting my life in naira?" She said it half-jokingly, but her eyes were serious. That was how most poor Nigerians laughed at their pain, like it was a distant joke meant for someone else. Tobi had a job, but calling it a job was being generous. He worked as a dispatch rider for a small logistics company. He earned just enough to feed, not enough to save. Still, he dreamed of something more, maybe starting his own business one day, or even traveling abroad. But dreams are expensive, and life was charging him interest. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining, hard, the kind of rain that makes Lagos look like it's drowning. Tobi was returning from a delivery in Ikeja when his phone rang. It was his neighbor, shouting through the storm. "Tobi! Come quick! Your mama don faint oh!" His hands trembled as he sped through the flooded roads, the motorbike slipping more than once. When he arrived, he found her collapsed on the floor, her breath shallow, her body limp. The rain outside couldn't drown out the panic in his chest. They rushed her to the nearest private hospital, a 3-story building with a peeling signboard that read Divine Mercy Medical Center. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and despair. The nurse at the front desk barely looked up. "Deposit? Please, help her first," Tobi pleaded. "She can't breathe." "Sir, we need a deposit before treatment." That was the sentence that began his nightmare. He begged. He argued. He even knelt. But the nurse only adjusted her wig and looked at him like he was another problem in a long line of them. Finally, a young doctor intervened, moved by pity or impatience. They admitted Mama Tinu to the emergency ward. The doctor said she had severe heart failure. "We'll need to run tests, maybe put her on oxygen. But it won't be cheap," he said, his voice heavy with practiced sympathy. Tobi nodded even though he didn't understand half of it. He just wanted her to live. That night, as he sat beside her bed, watching the machine beat rhythmically, he felt both hope and fear wrestling inside him. The hospital corridor was filled with whispers, other families pacing, crying, waiting. Everyone here was fighting some invisible war. When she opened her eyes, she smiled faintly. "Tobi, why are you looking at me like that? I'm not going anywhere." He laughed through tears. "You promise?" "I promise. You know your father will never forgive me if I leave you like this." Her voice was light, but her hand was cold. Over the next few days, the bills began to pile up like bricks on his chest. The hospital demanded 150,000 Nigerian nairas for the first round of treatment. Tobi had 12,000 Nigerian nairas in his account. He sold his phone, pawned his bike, and borrowed from friends. Still, it wasn't enough. Every morning, the nurses came with new receipts, drugs, scans, oxygen. The hospital never forgot to collect, but often forgot to care. On the fourth day, he overheard a nurse whisper to another, "That woman in bed 6, the one with the heart condition, if they can't pay by tomorrow, we'll have to discharge her." He froze. Discharge her? She could barely walk. That evening, he went to the hospital administrator, a man with a belly like a drum and eyes that never smiled. "Please, sir," Tobi said, "I'm trying. I just need time. She's all I have." The man sighed as if Tobi's words were a burden. "Young man, this is a private institution, not a charity. If you can't pay, take her to a government hospital." Government hospital. The phrase sounded like a curse. Everyone knew those places were overcrowded and under-equipped. People went there with a headache and came out in a coffin. Tobi felt something break inside him that night. He thought of stealing. The idea came and went like a shadow. But he couldn't do it. His mother raised him better than that. Instead, he called everyone he knew, begged old classmates, even his former boss. Most didn't pick up. Some said, "Bro, sorry, things are hard. In Nigeria, sympathy is cheap. Help is expensive." Still, he kept hoping. On the sixth night, Mama Tinu's condition worsened. Her breathing was shallow, her lips pale. The nurse came and whispered something about oxygen running out. "Can't you replace it?" Tobi asked. "Your deposit is finished," she said softly. "You have to pay first." He stared at her in disbelief. "She's dying." "I'm sorry," she whispered, looking away. He ran out into the rain, desperate, frantic, half-crazed. He found a nearby ATM and tried to withdraw the little left in his account. It wasn't enough. He called everyone again, no answer. By the time he returned, the bed was empty. The nurse avoided his eyes. The doctor's voice was calm, rehearsed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Alade. She went into cardiac arrest. We tried, but..." He didn't hear the rest. The world became a blur of sounds, the rain, the voices, the heartbeat that wasn't there anymore. He sat on the hospital floor, holding his mother's bag, and for the first time in years, he cried like a child. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the city clean, but not him. Never him. The night his mother died, Lagos didn't stop moving. The danfos still honked. The hawkers still shouted. The rain stopped, and people still bought roasted corn by the roadside. The world, in all its noise and indifference, went on, as if his pain were just another puddle the city would soon forget. Tobi sat in the hospital corridor, staring at the wall clock. It ticked too loudly, each second like a hammer against his chest. A nurse passed by with a clipboard, another wheeled in a patient on a stretcher. No one looked at him. He was invisible now, just another poor man who couldn't afford to save what he loved. When the doctor came back, he was polite, professional, detached. "Mr. Alade, I'm sorry for your loss. You'll need to clear the remaining balance before you can take the body." Tobi blinked. "What?" "The outstanding balance," the doctor repeated, his tone flat. 243,000. "Once it's paid, you can claim the body." He felt something dark and hot rise inside him. "You mean to tell me my mother is gone, and you're still counting money?" The doctor sighed, clearly used to such conversations. "I understand your pain, but the hospital has policies. We cannot release the body until payment is settled." He wanted to shout, to grab the man's white coat and rip it apart, but all the strength had left him. Instead, he slumped back into the plastic chair and covered his face. The air felt heavy, toxic. When he finally walked out of the hospital at dawn, the streets were slick with last night's rain. The air smelled of diesel and wet dust. He walked aimlessly, his thoughts foggy. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't go home to that empty room. By midday, the calls began. Relatives. Neighbors. Old friends from Oyo. Tobi, we heard. God will comfort you. Some promised to contribute something small. Most didn't call back. He went back to the hospital later that day, hoping that maybe, somehow, someone had mercy. But the receptionist only pointed to the ledger again. Until the bill is cleared, sir, we cannot proceed with release or burial arrangements. It was then he realized that even in death, poverty had no rest. The next few days were a blur. He slept little, ate nothing. He borrowed from friends, took a small loan from his workplace, even approached a loan shark in Oshodi, a man with a gold tooth and cold eyes. I can give you 150,000 Nigerian nairas, the man said, tapping his fingers on the table. But I want 300,000 Nigerian nairas back in 6 weeks. Tobi swallowed. That's too. The man smiled, slow and dangerous. If it's too much, bury your mother in the hospital. Simple. He signed the papers. That night, he counted the money again and again, afraid it would vanish before morning. He paid part of the hospital bill the next day, just enough for them to release her body. When he finally saw her lying in the morgue, wrapped in white, she looked small. Fragile. Not the woman who used to walk miles to the village school. Not the woman who raised him alone after his father's accident. Just stillness. He touched her hand, expecting warmth. There was none. Mama, I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have done more. His voice cracked. Somewhere in the background, the generator hummed, even death couldn't escape the sound of Lagos power failure. The burial took place in Oyo, their hometown. The journey there was long and quiet. He sat beside the coffin in the back of an old Hiace bus, the windows rattling with every bump. Outside, the countryside blurred past, green fields, rusted rooftops, small children chasing goats. At the family compound, the old women wailed, the men murmured prayers. It was a modest burial. No music, no crowd. Just a few family members, a priest, and a coffin that looked too expensive for a woman who had lived so simply. When the last handful of sand hit the wooden box, something inside Tobi broke completely. He felt hollow, as if the ground had taken not just his mother, but the last piece of him that believed in mercy. After the service, his uncle, a grey-haired man with a calm voice, pulled him aside. My son, you have done your best. Don't blame yourself. This country, it's not made for the poor. Tobi nodded, but inside, guilt chewed at him. What was doing his best worth when it didn't save her? A week later, he returned to Lagos, broke, exhausted, and owing 150,000 Nigerian nairas plus interest. His boss gave him a cold welcome. You've missed deliveries, Tobi. Customers are complaining. I lost my mother, sir. The man sighed. I'm sorry for your loss, but business must move. That was Lagos. Compassion had a deadline. So he worked, morning to night, rushing deliveries through traffic, sweating under the sun, barely eating. He couldn't afford to stop. The loan shark's men were already calling. Every ring of his phone made his heart pound. Once, they cornered him outside a customer's gate. Baba T, we know be wicked people, one of them said, smiling too politely. But you know say boss no day like story. When next we come, no be talk we go talk. He nodded, trembling. At night, he'd return to his room, sit on the bed, and stare at the empty corner where his mother's mat used to be. He could still hear her voice sometimes, soft, patient, always humming hymns while folding clothes. Now there was only silence. One evening, after a long day of deliveries, Tobi rode past the hospital again. Divine Mercy Medical Center. The signboard flickered under the streetlight. Something inside him twisted, anger, grief, and disbelief all tangled together. He parked the bike and stood outside the gate, watching patients shuffle in and out. He remembered that nurse's voice, your deposit is finished. The way she couldn't meet his eyes. The way they treated his mother's life like a business transaction. He walked up to the gatekeeper. I want to see the administrator. The man looked him over suspiciously. Do you have an appointment? No. Then go and get one. Tobi clenched his fists. Tell him it's about the woman who died here 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Tinu Alade. The man hesitated, then went inside. Minutes later, the administrator emerged, the same man with the round belly and smug eyes. What is it this time, Mr. Alade? He asked, feigning patience. Tobi's voice was shaking but firm. You killed her. The administrator raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You killed her, Tobi repeated. Because she couldn't pay. You let her die. People nearby started to stare. The administrator frowned. Young man, I understand you're grieving, but be careful what you say. Careful? Tobi snapped. You think I'm afraid? You let my mother die because I didn't have money. What kind of mercy is that? Security moved closer. The administrator waved them off, his voice dropping low. If you have an issue, go to court. Don't create a scene. Tobi laughed bitterly. Court? You think poor people go to court in this country? You've built an empire out of people's pain. The administrator adjusted his tie. Conversation over. Good evening. Tobi stood there, trembling with fury, until the man walked back inside. He wanted to scream, to break something, but all he could do was stand in the rain, powerless again. Days passed. Then weeks. He kept working, paying off the loan bit by bit. The pain dulled, but it never left.
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel.